the alive clay man. It was the brightest Saturday of the year, and Salison was finally 8 years old. The backyard was a flurry of colorful streamers and the sweet scent of chocolate cake. Rory was the first guest to arrive, carrying a box of magic tricks. He and Salison stood by the snack table, loading their plates with glittery frosted cookies while the party music began to play. While the other children ran around, Tonya found a quiet spot on a garden bench. She opened Tonya's diary and began scribbling notes about the party decorations. Nearby, 5-year-old Lola was busy with a pump and a bag of bright latex. She twisted a long pink balloon into the shape of a wobbly poodle, her tongue poking out in deep concentration. Under the shade of a tall oak tree, Owen decided it was time for a nap. He reclined in a comfortable lawn chair, stretching his legs out. Payman stood right beside him, acting as a loyal guardian. Payman held a massive, colorful striped umbrella over Owen to make sure not a single ray of sun disturbed his rest. Asger was the only one who noticed something strange happening near the flower beds. A few tiny lumps of craft clay were twitching on top of the stone wall. As he watched, the lumps began to multiply. 2 became 4, then 4 became 8, scurrying across the stones like little muddy beetles. The tiny clay figures began to climb on top of one another, merging with a wet, squelching sound. They gathered dirt and dried leaves, growing larger and wider by the second. Slowly, the mound of clay stretched upward, molding itself into the shape of a colossal, muddy man that towered over the garden fence. A giant shadow suddenly stretched across the lawn, snuffing out the sunlight. Usher and Dennis looked up from their game of tag, their faces turning pale. High above them, the colossal clay man let out a deep, gravelly groan. Its eyes were 2 smooth river stones, and its arms were as thick as tree trunks. Panic began to spread through the backyard. Tina and Jake scrambled away as the giant took a heavy, thumping step that made the lemonade glasses rattle on the tables. "Run!" Jake shouted, clutching his party hat. Tina looked back over her shoulder, her eyes wide with fear as the garden ground trembled under the giant's weight. The giant reached out a massive, damp hand toward the center of the yard. Before she could move, the clay man scooped up Apia. She let out a startled cry as she was lifted high into the air. The giant held her firmly but carefully between its muddy fingers, looking at her with its stone eyes. With a sudden, sweeping motion, the giant swung its arm and tossed Apia through the air. She landed with a soft oomph on a patch of long, thick grass. "It's the end of the party," someone screamed. Salison ran toward the spot where Apia had landed, her heart racing as children scattered in every direction. Salison looked around the chaotic yard, desperately searching for the rest of her friends. She was especially worried about Asger, but then she saw him. Asger was sitting peacefully on the grass, right next to Owen's chair. The 2 of them were sharing a bowl of popcorn, laughing and pointing at the giant clay man as if it were the best show on earth. Kosher's chicken sandwich. It was a sunny Saturday, and Jay's backyard was filled with streamers and balloons because he was finally 5 years old. His friend Kosher, who was 9, arrived with a bag of special ingredients. Kosher wanted to make sure this birthday was the most peaceful and delicious one yet. He gave Jay a high five as the party music started to thump through the air. While the other kids played, Kosher headed to the outdoor kitchen. He was famous for his chicken sandwich, which was actually a very special omelet. Leon watched in awe as Kosher cracked eggs and added fresh lettuce, gooey cheese, sharp garlic, and crisp onions. He even added sliced tomatoes and a secret layer of zesty lemon juice rice to the middle. Nearby, Salison and AJ were busy decorating the fence with paper chains. They laughed as they compared how many loops they had made. The scent of Kosher's cooking mixed with the smell of the garden flowers, making everyone feel happy and hungry. The whole yard felt like a giant hug of friendship. In the center of the yard, it was time for the main event, the cake. Jay sat at the picnic table, taking a giant bite of chocolate frosting. John sat next to him, cheering and clapping. Everyone was focused on the sweets, but across the lawn, something very strange was beginning to happen near the craft table. Azure and Rory were the first to notice. On the craft table, small lumps of modeling clay began to twitch and wiggle, as if they were waking up from a long nap. The clay figures started to scurry toward each other, merging and molding into tiny people that could walk and jump on their own. The clay people began to climb. They stood on each other's shoulders, creating a wobbly, living tower. Lasker and Owen watched in amazement as the stack grew higher and higher. The clay tower kept rising until it was exactly as tall as 9-year-old Kosher, swaying gently in the breeze. Just then, Olo stepped forward with a very special guest. Behind him walked a giant living stickman that was as tall as Jay's mom, Michaela. The stickman was made of glowing white lines and moved with a peaceful grace. Olo explained that the stickman was a symbol of harmony, sent to make sure everyone at the party felt loved. Olo had a lofty ideal. He wanted the whole world to be as peaceful as Jay's birthday party. He sat with Azure and shared his vision of a world where everyone shared their sandwiches and played together without any fights. The stickmen stood behind them, radiating a soft, calming light that made the grass seem greener. To keep the mood light, Olo decided to draw a friendly prank. He took a large piece of paper and drew a picture of Jay digging a deep hole in the middle of the yard. When he showed it to Jay, they both burst out laughing. The prank was so silly that it broke any tension, making the clay figures dance with joy. Finally, the sandwich was ready. Kosher brought the special omelet sandwich over and offered the first bite to the giant stickman. As the stickman ate, a wave of peace spread out from the yard and into the whole world. With good food, funny pranks, and great friends, Kosher and his team had truly brought peace to everyone.